to heal the soul with real talk and deep dives into hidden mental and emotional valleys and steep peaks of what ails and hinders us from thriving far and beyond surviving. This is a show to awaken the sleeping giants and hidden phenomenal in all of us. R&R. Welcome. You've entered the space to release and rediscover. R&R with Topazz is an experience fueled to heal the soul with real talk and deep dives into hidden mental and emotional valleys and steep peaks of what ails and hinders us from thriving far and beyond surviving. This is a show to awaken the sleeping giants and hidden phenomenal in all of us. R&R. Welcome. Entered the space to release and rediscover. R&R with Topazz is an experience fueled to heal the soul with real talk and deep dives into hidden mental and emotional valleys and steep peaks of what ails and hinders us from thriving far and beyond surviving. This is a show to awaken the sleeping giants and hidden phenomenal in all of us. R&R. Welcome. Good evening. What's happening out there, beautiful people? It's Monday Mind Matters, R&R with Topazz. Thank you for joining us this evening. Who are the beautiful people? You are the beautiful people. That's right. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for tuning in. I'm excited about our show this evening, as always. Yes, you have tuned in to the first show of our new season, and I am truly, as always, excited about our guests, but tonight's guests truly are on another level, and just kicking this season off the right way. So, for those of you that attended the Black Boss Summit, I just want to say, let me get this out of the way real quick. Thank you. Thank you for showing up and showing out. The Black Boss Summit was amazing. It was something that I don't know that Denver was even ready for. I don't know that clearly Cherry Creek wasn't ready for all of us, but it was a success. It was a success because of those of you that showed up and helped to make it happen. Congratulations to the first Pitch Black winner. Our competition was amazing. Lots of really excellent candidates that showed up promoting their product. We got some good feedback. We had some scholarship recipients that provided some testimonials to me, and I'm sharing those with those of you that helped to make their attendance to the Black Boss Summit possible. We appreciate you. We're already starting to connect with those who are interested in sponsoring the summit for this next year in 2022. So if that's you, please reach out to the BBI, contact Jice or Shay at the Black Business Initiative, and express your interest, because the planning will be underway almost immediately. So email right now at ctnmedia@bbiprofessionals.com if you're interested in being a sponsor for the 2022 Black Boss Summit. Yes, and so with that out of the way, as always, I'm always extending my condolences to those of you out there who have lost loved ones, because death is just, it just seems rampant. I hear some people say that it's not any more than what it's been in the past, but that certainly has not been my experience. I've never had this many people that are in my circle, or third party, who've had so many losses in such a short period of time. So our prayers continue to be with you, to the Jackson family for the loss of Kenyatta and their babies, continuing to pray for those babies, just trying to acclimate to life without their mother. So many really overwhelming circumstances out there where people have lost loved ones. So we just want to extend our condolences on behalf of R&R and CTN Media. Our prayers are definitely with you. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. Go to our YouTube channel and subscribe, share, let your friends know, get them on board with CTN Media. CTN Media is for the culture, by the culture, something for us, by us, dedicated to our community issues, to the things that are relevant to the African American community, not just locally, but on a national level. We are expanding and we're tapping into households from New York City to San Francisco, from Arkansas to Montana, Omaha, Nebraska, and every place in between. Speaking of, also want to extend prayers to those of you who are still recovering from disaster. We know that just because the news stopped talking about it does not mean that everything is well or that all is well. So for those that are still digging out from floods, hurricanes, earthquakes in Haiti, those who are still struggling and trying to survive under the rule of terrorists in Afghanistan, we are praying for you, for our sisters and brothers in Tigray who are trying to escape civil war there and get to Sudan safely. Our prayers are with you as well. So know that we care. We're here because the people, our people, matter. So, with that said, that's a big part of why this show tonight is dedicated to the realities of second chances. That's right. Second chances matter. What have you done with your second chance? How have you benefited from your second chance? Not everybody gets a second chance. So, if you have found yourself in a situation where you have a second chance at whatever it is, living life, your health, your finances, your family, your marriage, your freedom, it matters. And so tonight we're going to delve into that topic. And so without further ado, because this group of men, this threesome is so powerful, I want to make sure that we have enough time. And it seems that I never do have enough time, but I want to get them on board and introduce you to some men that I have the utmost respect for what they've come through and what they've done as a result of what they've come through. So if I could just go ahead and get you to bring them on into the room, that would be excellent. Excellent. Good evening. Good evening. Good evening. We have the visionary, we have the founders of the Second Chance Center out of Aurora, Colorado, and they have recently expanded into the city of Denver. And before you know it, they'll probably be expanding into some other cities outside of Colorado. But I am just blessed and honored that they have accepted the invitation to be my guests on this show this evening. Greetings, gentlemen. Greetings.
Good evening.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. So I'm going to just extend the opportunity for you all to introduce yourselves. I wanted to start this show this evening just out of respect for your journeys, where you've come from, how you got there. Because a lot of people have no idea. You know, people want to say, wow, how did they do that? I want to do what they do. I want to be in their position. But people have no idea what it took to get you where you are now. And so we have Mr. Hassan with us. We have Mr. Adam with us and Mr. Sean. And so Hassan, Latif, Adam, Abdullah, and Sean Taylor, welcome this evening. And I would love it if you all would just take a moment. And I just want you to talk to our audience. If each one of you would just introduce yourself. And in introducing yourself, I would love for you to share something unique about your journey that our audience likely has no idea about you and what that journey has consisted of.
Well, let me start, if I may. Since first of all, we're honored to be on your show. Thank you for inviting us. Like you said, my name is Hassan Latif. I'm executive director here of Second Chance Center, and I mean, there's probably a whole lot about our journey that we'll never share, but we're pleased to share what the audience might find useful or beneficial. Starting with myself, I did 18 years of incarceration here in the state of Colorado for armed robbery conviction, and I actually spent the first 15 years of that time in court every single day. I went to prison for a crime that actually someone else committed, but I had similar footprints that I had left in the sand. I chose, instead of acknowledging that, to be indignant about the fact that I was arrested and convicted and sent to prison. And I said for 15 years I was on that journey, and the only thing I was interested in really was getting out. And so either I was fighting a case or appealing a case for that entire time. And it was sort of an epiphany for me one day to just come to this understanding that, yeah, they might have got this wrong and that wrong, but they got the right guy, because you were running amok and you weren't going to stop on your own. And for me, that was the beginning of the second journey of mine, which was really an in-depth kind of look at self and figuring out how I actually found myself in those circumstances, and what was my part in it, as opposed to what I'd spent 15 years doing, which was pointing at all of these other people and all these other reasons for my situation. And
so, Mr. Latif, can I pause you for just a moment?
Sure.
Because I don't want to get too far past something really key that you said.
Mm-hmm.
They locked you up and sentenced you for someone else's crime,
Yes,
although
ma'am.
you had a similar footprint.
Yes, ma'am.
And so how in the world did you end up going through 15 years in prison without coming out of there with a hardened heart full of hate? Because in spite of the fact that you may have had similar footprints, what they sentenced you for was not your crime. How did you avoid being full of hate and anger?
Well, actually, I did not avoid that, sis.
Okay.
For the first 7 years of my incarceration, I literally made a list in my mind of everyone I felt I needed to get with if I ever got back out of prison. People that I thought had done the wrong thing or had not stepped up to do the right thing. And after about 7, 8 years, I started going over this list in my head, and I said to myself, man, if you ever get out of prison, you're not going to be able to put that much work in. You got to prioritize. So I spent the next 7 years or so just cutting that list down. To around the same time I had this awakening, I still had a couple of 3 people on this list, and I met a woman in a therapeutic community program in DLC named Tanya Garcia, and she said to me that my hatred was like taking poison and waiting for this next person to die. And that didn't make a lot of sense to me when she said it, but actually when I found out that that was what I was doing all these years, that it didn't make any sense at all either. So that's one thing. But also I was more fortunate than most, and that's because my wife Imani walked this thing down with me. And so being able to visit with her and our children for a lot of that time, it really kind of kept me connected to some sense of humanity, because at least every weekend I was actually with people who I knew cared about me, loved me, wanted me out there in the world with them. And, most of the folks that I did time with weren't as fortunate, weren't as blessed. So, I had that going for me. And if you ask me what the one thing was that probably kept me going, it was knowing that I had this partner that was there trying to help me get through it and was going through it with me.
So you were married when you went to prison?
Yeah, that didn't last though. That my marriage ended about a month after I caught a bunch of cases in 1988. And my wife Imani is a dear friend of mine for a number of years, and she tapped in my first year in. She tapped in and wrote this out with me. So. And now we're celebrating our 30th anniversary coming.
Wow. Yes. What a blessing. What a blessing. So part of your motivation and your desire to shift and your willingness to shift was influenced in part. Number one, I heard you mention a therapist. Number two, I heard you mention your wife. Someone whom you connected with. Were you friends already, or did you meet while you were in prison?
Oh no, we had met in 1980 in New York City. We both worked for the health department. She was my best friend for many years, so we just took it to this next level. I actually tried to spend a few years trying to convince her that my life wasn't one she wanted to share, but she convinced me instead that it was one she was up for, and she knew what she was getting herself into. And it turns out that she was right.
Amen. Amen. So it matters to have people who genuinely, authentically care.
Yeah, inside or out. I think that's a human need of folks to connect with someone on a level like that. I believe
someone you can count on, who's not going to disappear when the hard times start.
Exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Mr. Abdullah.
How are you?
I'm well. Good to see you, sir. It's been a minute.
Yeah, you too.
I haven't seen you in a while. Well, my birth name is George Smith, and my chosen name of 53 years is Adam Abdullah. I accepted that name when I was 23 years old, and I'm 75 years old now.
Well, let's celebrate the fact that you are 75 years old, still out there kicking it, still out there doing what you do, making a difference, influencing the lives of others, still healthy, in your right mind after all you've been through. What a blessing. I need my viewing audience to send up some hearts, some likes, because this is unusual. All right, Mr. Abdullah, let me ask you, what does it mean to you when you think about a second chance? What does that mean to you?
Well, after 33 years in the BOP, what we call the Bureau of Prisons, or the Feds, I wound up with 33 years and 3 months. I went to prison when I was 31 years old, and I got out when I was 64. During that time, or actually even before I went to prison, I went to prison as a Muslim. People may not know, but I had a teacher who was also the teacher of Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, who actually introduced me to his teacher. In a small community in Washington, D.C. back in the early 70s. And I became a part of that particular community. And I stayed in D.C. for 5 years. During my 5th year in that community, something very devastating took place. 7 members of my community were martyred by a rival so-called Islamic group called the Nation of Islam. My teacher had actually been an advisor to Elijah for several years, actually from 1949 to 1959. And he was actually sent into that organization by his own teacher, who was a Pakistani Muslim who came to America and actually married an African-American woman and actually had children by her. So he was sent into the Nation of Islam to try to get Elijah to change his philosophy and his psychology about only black people could be Muslims. Pretty much the same thing that Malcolm did. Actually, they were contemporaries, and my teacher were contemporaries. Malcolm was the national spokesman when my teacher was the national secretary. Well, after years of trying to get Elijah to change, he realized that he was not going to change because he was actually being, he told my teacher, he said, you see the people here who come here every Savior's Day, actually after they had fleeced the different black communities in America, selling fish and newspapers. Every year they would take the money and converge on Chicago like they were going to Mecca. Savior's Day was a cash cow for Elijah back in those days. My teacher was the one who kept his books and knew just about how much money was being made every year. He finally told him the reason he couldn't change was because he was under contract with the government, that they had a contract, that he was never, ever to allow white people to join the nation. As long as he was able to keep blacks and whites separated, that's what he was told to do. Well, years later, he told his son that he would be able to have a different form of Islam. He would be able to teach the type of Islam that he was taught. Warith Deen Muhammad He could say his prayers in Arabic. He could read Arabic. He visited Mecca. He had Islamic teachers, good teachers. What my teacher told me was that what he disliked about Elijah was that he had a double standard. One standard for his people or his family, and another standard for his followers. Followers in the nation at that time, they couldn't read the Quran. They had to stand straight up and make their prayers like this. They weren't righteous enough to read the Quran. So Elijah was the only one that could give them their name. So there was a lot of stuff going on. Years later, fast forward, in 1973, because of my teacher now being gone for over 20 years or more from Elijah's movement, he actually wrote letters to all of the so-called temples in America and even in the Virgin Islands, denouncing Elijah. And repercussions came from
Wow. Sorry about that.
That's all right. Repercussions came in the form of assassinations on his family. They actually came to assassinate him. One of the biggest, the largest homicides in the Washington, D.C. was in 1973, where 9 people were assassinated, 7 died, and 2 survived. I was a member of the community at that time when it happened, and it was a very trying time. But we got through it. I was pretty much traumatized. I hadn't seen my parents or my family in over 3 years. So I took a hiatus and went and visited my family back in Ohio. But because of the trauma that I had experienced there, we call it taqleed. Taqleed means blind following, which was something that happened to me. Following someone blindly.
What did you call that?
Taqleed, blind following.
And what language is that?
Arabic. Yeah. So those people who have a murashid or a leader, like many of the people that followed Elijah, they followed blindly. And I was put in a position after the death of his family, I too followed blindly. To the point where 5 years later, I wound up in prison. Because I came back and we were protesting the showing of a movie that was considered sacrilegious, showing the Prophet Muhammad. We never saw the movie, 11 of us. But our teacher told us that we were going to stop the showing of this movie. So we wound up taking over 3 buildings in Washington, D.C. in 1977. So that's something that people don't know about me. I was considered a terrorist back in those days, terrorizing people that I still pray for forgiveness. But I attribute that to blind following, pretty much like a guy being in a gang, where you don't have much control of yourself. You just do what you're told. So I experienced the trauma of kind of like gang life. I didn't come to my senses until, about 6 years into my prison sentence. Because eventually we surrendered, went down, gave our weapons up, after 3 days of holding people hostage. We went to prison after that, all 12 of us.
Were there any lives lost?
Actually, two people, one person. Yeah. Not
And
not in the particular building that I was in, but yeah, one person did.
And was that one person part of your group or on the outside?
He was actually he was actually a newscaster for Howard University radio. It was a mishap. I think it wasn't intentional, but there was some gunplay in the district building. The district building was where the mayor's office, police, and I think a couple of my co-defendants at that time, they were at that building. 2 at that building, 3 at another building, and 7 at another building. 12 of us all together. But anyway, that's where the doors to a elevator opened, a person was shot. Yeah.
Mr. Abdullah, I'm going to interrupt you for just a second because I just want to make reference to a comment that one of our viewers made, a couple of comments here. One of them is saying that basically, as I paraphrase, listening to this evening is really a part of history that was never taught. And then another comment says that this is CRT at its finest. Thank you for sharing your stories. So I just wanted to put that out there, that already we haven't even really got into all of it, but already some people are acknowledging the value of what you're sharing.
Well, I appreciate that very much. When I went to prison in 1977, for the first 6 years, I was pretty bitter and lost. I never had to put a knife in anyone. First 10 years was spent in Leavenworth Penitentiary. And like I said, I never had to put a knife in anyone, but I always knew where they were in the event that I needed them. I did actually have a few fights with people, and I hurt them pretty bad. So prison is like caged animals. So you have to be able to protect yourself or you wind up wrecking yourself. So that's what I just protected myself. And for the first 6 years, it was pretty traumatic, trying. But my wife came to prison to visit me after 6 years. And
So you were married prior to going?
Yes, I was.
And this is your same wife that you're with now?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Yeah. 47 years.
47 years.
Yeah.
My goodness. And you, how much time did you spend in prison?
33 and 3 months.
33 and 3 months. So she waited for you for 33 years.
Yes, she
The first 6 years, she was kind of on a hiatus, I guess.
Well, she had I left 3 daughters. I left 3 young daughters. So she had to take care of my children. That was her position.
Sure.
And still lived in the community with other Muslims. So she finally came to prison to see me after 6 years, and she told me, "You know what, man?" She said, "You're a fool." And I kind of said, "Yeah," because I was in and out of the hole all the time. And then she said, "You know what? They're going to kill you." Well, I knew where I was at. I was in a place where I could kill or be killed.
Hmm.
I accepted that. And then she said, you know what? You're never going to get home. Paradigm shift. It felt like my brain flipped over in my head. Everything that I hadn't been doing, I started doing. I was 36 years old and didn't even have a GED. So school for me, that was the first thing. I got a GED. Then I figured, well, I think I need a little more education because back in those days, am I talking too much?
No, go ahead, my brother.
Well, we're going to give you just a few more minutes. I want to make sure we get to Sean and the program information, but I do want you to just take a few more minutes.
Yeah. Well, after that, I went to college and took got a associate's degree in general studies from Kansas City, Kansas Community College. So that really started me on a roll to actually changing my thinking, changing my behavior. It's changing all the way around. I mean, I didn't really know myself, so I had a chance to sit down and figure out who I really was.
Yeah.
Before I finished, I had another degree from. I took two courses, well, actually three courses from Ohio State University. Course, and I wanted to know how more about incarceration and the justice system. So I took a course from Ohio State University in law enforcement and criminal justice. I also took a course in astronomy and one in jazz history.
What an interesting blend you had there. Kept it interesting, huh?
Yeah, well, my father was a musician, jazz musician.
Okay. Okay.
I liked that.
When you came out of there, what degrees did you have by the time you came out?
I had two associate's degrees. The other one was from the University of the District of Columbia because I eventually got out of Leavenworth, wound up in Terre Haute, Indiana. From there, another prison and then another prison, but finally wound up in Washington, D.C., fighting my case. I finally got back in court. Didn't get any real action, but I did manage to go to school at University of the District of Columbia and got another associate's degree in, I think it was urban studies.
So let me ask you this.
Mm-hmm.
When you came out, did you come out paroled or did you come out with your time finished?
I came out with what they call a 5-year tail, but since the feds didn't have parole anymore, it was really parole, but they just changed the name and called it probation. So I had a 5-year tail, which I finished in 4.
Okay.
I finished in 4 years, but by that time I was working with Hassan and Sean. That was in 2012. I graduated in 2013 with a bachelor's degree from the University of Metro State University.
My. Now that truly is resilience. And what I heard you saying as it relates to what really shifted trajectory for you in walking you into your second chance was a reality check from someone whom you loved and respected, your wife, about the direction that you were going in. And she just in that reality check, something happened to penetrate through all of that hardcore exterior to wake you up. We know that was spiritual it wasn't just something in the natural, but it was something spiritual that took place to truly penetrate deep in your spirit to get you to shift after all that time that you had been in the mindset and the state that you had been in. Would you, am I interpreting that correctly? Would you agree with it?
Absolutely right. I needed someone to turn the switch on.
Again, I'm hearing the value of relationship, and the value of having someone that can truly speak into your life-giving messages, life-giving energy, life-giving deposits. And it shifted you. And at that point, you had been locked up 10 years, or was that when she came to visit you at the 6th year?
6 years, yeah.
6th year. Okay. All right. Thank you for that. Let's shift over to Mr. Taylor. So if you wouldn't mind just starting with what does that mean, a second chance to you? And then if you could share something about your journey that you feel would be valuable for our audience to know, and what people likely don't know about your journey.
Well, what a second chance means for me is, I get to actually live. I went to prison when I was a child. I went to prison 3 days after my 17th birthday because I decided to point a gun at someone's house and pull the trigger, thinking that I would just scare the occupants of the house. And of course, bullets do more than that. And another 17-year-old lost his life. And that's the prison for me. That's the prison for me. So I turned myself in the next day, and I was eventually sentenced to life, which I deserved because I took someone's life. So when I got to prison, it didn't take me long to change who I was. I got away from the gang that I was associated with, and I met a really cool guy named Hassan Latif. And I was about 18 years old when I met him. And, customarily, young people should give an older person the bottom bunk when they come in, so that the older person doesn't have to climb up the stairs to get to the top bunk. But Mr. Latif was very, very capable and physically able to get his behind up on that top bunk. So he did. And he didn't press me about getting the bottom bunk. He just wondered who was this kid who wouldn't give him the bottom bunk. And he started to mentor that kid, and he taught that kid a whole lot of good stuff, especially the religion of Islam, which governed my life from that point forward. And I changed a lot of things about myself, and I became a mentor. I became a teacher. I did a lot of good things, and the governor took sight of that. And after 22 years incarceration, he let me come home and gave me a second chance. In the name of God, actually, I'm here. So that's what a second chance means for me. I'm living it right now, and I'm very blessed. Every day I just dedicate myself to the work of doing good because I took someone's life, and I'm going to always dedicate myself to that. I'm going to always do good work, whether it's with Second Chance Center or just in life, because I owe it to the universe.
Wow. And when I think about how many people, how many human beings are out there engaged in such ugly heinousness, who feel justified in doing exactly what they do to terrorize people, to take the life away from another human being, to just disrupt peace continuously because of their own pain. And when I listen to you gentlemen talk about the trauma that you've been through, the
trauma that we caused others.
trauma that you've caused others. And in the midst of that, to shift somewhere in that journey, to make a decision, to make an intentional, conscious decision that that's not the human being that you want to continue to be.
Yeah.
What do you lend that to,
Yeah,
Mr. Taylor?
That's restorative justice. That's restorative justice. You know, in order for our society to be healed, you have to get the advice of the people that you threw in the dumpster. Because a lot of us just simply didn't deserve to be in the dumpster in the first place. Let's be honest. Prison is a plantation. It was created after slavery.
Absolutely.
And they needed bodies for it. And they put us in there. They put us in there to work for all of these corporations that use slave labor to this day. And so with that being said, they had to create all of these mitigating circumstances for us to be there. It's up to Second Chance Center to create a different set of mitigating circumstances to shut that place down. All of those prisons. It's time to shut them down because we need to stop putting our asses in them. Period.
Amen. And so that's a nice segue. But before we shift, I want to go back to something that you said, because it really speaks to a philosophy that I have, in that you cannot conquer what you will not confront. And so when I said, because of all the trauma that you guys have been through, and then you added, and the trauma that we caused, a lot of times people can't get to the next step, can't get to the place of even recognizing and appreciating a second chance because they never own that side of it.
It's a good point you're making. Not to interrupt you, sis. I'm sorry, but
no, go for it.
We have a curriculum here that's based off a book that I wrote in 2012 called Never Going Back, 7 Steps to Staying Out of Prison. The first step.
I have that book on my shelf here.
Well,
anyway, go ahead.
You read it. The first step in our curriculum is own your own crap, and that's really about accountability, and we believe that's where it starts. You know, we also share in that chapter a Kenyan proverb that says, "The child is the father of the man, subsequently the mother of the woman." But what that really says is that whatever we're exposed to or nurtured from and by as developing human beings really impacts the course of our lives. And we don't say that as a means of making excuses for what people do, but we think that you have to understand the reasons that go into play. So it's a very simple formula that we use here at Second Chance Center, and that's thoughts plus feelings equals behavior. So the bulk of our work, beyond the regular stuff that people would associate with the reentry organization, like finding someone a job or housing, the bulk of our work is getting people to examine how they think and how they actually got to think like that. Like, what makes you think it's okay to put a gun in somebody's face and take their stuff? What makes you think that it's all right for you to resolve a conflict by violence? You know, those sorts of things, because there was a journey to that place and to that thinking. Then after that is the feeling part of it, and having people really honestly assess their feelings and how they came to feel this way, including about the world, their place in it themselves. And we don't think that if those two elements aren't really addressed, that any sustained change in behavior is probably not going to happen. So people could stay civilized long enough to get out of prison, or compliant enough to get out of the halfway house, or disciplined enough to make it off parole. But without dealing with those two parts of the equation, the likelihood that a certain level of aggravation or disappointment or difficulty, people will revert to what's familiar and what's comfortable and what oftentimes contributed to us going to prison in the first place. So that's the bulk of our work here. I think from all three of us, you heard about someone outside of us being influential in that thought shift. We try to be that here at Second Chance Center. It started with us, but now we have a host of care managers. We're 40 full-time people deep now.
So let me pause you for a second. I want to back up just a little bit.
Please.
Because you guys are kind of ahead of me a little bit. But I want to remind you that we have people watching who don't live in Denver.
Okay.
So we've got people who have no idea what the Second Chance Center is. So let's back up and talk about what you all ended up doing with your experiences combined together when you all came together, and what was birthed out of that.
Okay, well let me take you back a little bit.
Okay.
First of all, when I met Sean was the only person that I ever met in prison to this day that was devastated by their crime. I'd never seen that before, and that said a lot to me about who he was, even at that moment. Sheikh Adam, I knew his daughters when they were 8, 10, and 11 years old, and used to work a push cart for my wife and I on 16th Street Mall. And I knew their father was in prison. Okay. So when he came home, I was working for an organization called the Turnabout Program. And during the job readiness class, during the break, I stepped to him. He had a white beard, sort of like mine at the time. I thought it might be challenging to find work for an old guy. And I asked him, brother, what kind of job are you looking for? He said, I'm not looking for a job. I just finished working 33 years and 3 months for the federal government. I'm trying to spend time with my kids, my grandkids, and my great-grands. Come to find out, I knew his daughters. It blew my mind that,
look at God.
Yeah, it blew my mind that he now had great-grandchildren, And so when I worked for this agency, the recidivism rate was about 50% in Colorado, and it seemed like DOC expected that. The people I worked for seemed to accept that, and I had a problem with both of those things. So after a number of attempts to try to address what I thought was something lacking in the approach to these folks coming out from prison, I decided to stop being afraid and just do what I thought would have some better outcomes. And so I reached out to Sean first and Adam, and I told them both, that this is what we needed to do, and the heavy lifting would be on them. At the time, I said, because I'm going to be doing stuff I don't even know what it is right now. But as an executive director of a nonprofit, that was a job I needed to learn, and the bulk of the heavy lifting was going to fall to them. That's where we started together, and since then, at the time, it was 3 Black men with 75 years of cumulative incarceration time. And people were wondering, what are these guys up to? And looking at us with a really big microscope, the benefit of which was not only did they get to see what we were up to, but they got to see how we went about our business. And we went about our business, not just addressing the needs of those who came into us from prisons looking for some assistance, and we knew what kind was needed, but also we had to carve out our own place in this arena. It wasn't formerly incarcerated people doing this work. It certainly wasn't 3 Black men doing this work. And we had to carve our own space in this arena, like I said. And
just let me squeeze in here real quick.
Sure.
I need to make sure that our audience is capturing this. 3 Black men, 75 years of incarceration, prison, accumulative, who then decided to shift the narrative and make some changes for other folks coming out of prison.
Yeah, well, we got an award many years ago, maybe 5 years ago, from First Plymouth Congregational Church. And afterwards, there was an older gentleman. When I say, I'm old, so he had to be dusty. He asked me, how could Sean and Adam and myself do so much time in prison and come out with all our marbles? Now, I didn't feel at the time that it was worth debating the fact that we actually had all of our marbles. I understood what he was asking for. And what I told him is what I believe to this day, and that's that the only reason we were ever blessed to get a second chance of coming back to this world was to do exactly what we're doing. And this is why, against all odds and against some pretty stiff opposition when we started out, we've continued to be blessed in this work and continue to grow and continue to do things that haven't been done before. So we're just going to keep doing it the way we've been doing it, Topazz, and keep asking for his protection and his grace so that we can keep being successful.
Doing what's never been done before. Clearly, the three of you represent the impossible from the standpoint of what man decided was impossible in terms of what the system decided was not possible and not even an option. So you guys went against all the odds on every side. Yeah. On every side.
Well, let me tell you how vast that is, really. Since when we first got started with this, someone called me and told me there was a community reentry meeting down at 940 Broadway, which was the headquarters of the Division of Adult Parole, and asked me was I going, and I said I wasn't invited. So I went down to this building, and I acted as though I was there to see my parole officer. I emptied my pockets, I went to the metal detector, but instead of going left, I went right. Went upstairs to where I was told this meeting was. And when I got up there, I looked in, there were 7 white men and a white woman, and I stuck my head in and I asked if this was the community reentry meeting, and they said yes. So I walked in and closed the door, and I said, well, I don't see any representatives from the community, so if it's okay with you all, I'm just going to stay. And that was in 2013. So I had to sneak into that building. But in 2019, in December, I went to sit on the first Governor's Executive Clemency Advisory Board meeting in the same building, and I had a parking spot that was reserved for me. And I'm just saying that that's not one of how you
that wasn't a lot of time, by the way. No, 2013, 2018. That's not a lot. That's just 5 years.
Yeah, and it's not one of those moments how you like me now, sis. I'm just trying to tell you that where we had to sneak in at one point,
I get it.
We're welcome now. And that's the result of not Adam and Sean and myself being exceptionally fly. It's because thousands of folks have trusted us and trusted this process to come through here over these years, and they've been successful. Our recidivism rate has been under 10% for the last 7 years. And because of all of those clients who trusted us and trusted this process, we're able to point to their successes and get this next opportunity. So they're very much a part of the success of this entity. We always said to them, the better you do, the better we're going to be able to do. This is just not blowing smoke. That whole provider-recipient power dynamic, we've always rejected that from the beginning. We know we're the stewards of resources, and we fight hard to find them and to secure them, and we're serious about taking care of those resources in a responsible way. But our people don't have to come to us with their hat in their hand, because the only reason we're here is to be of service to them. That's clear. That's the core of our culture. That's how we function from day one, and our people know that. So you're talking about folks, 65% of whom are people of color, but we've served everybody from day one, okay? But most of our folks are felt apart from rather than a part of most of their life. For many of them, second chance sin is the first thing they feel a part of. Like they know that this thing is growing and building and moving because of their efforts. And we don't let them forget that. You know, that's the empowerment that happens during this process. And it's not like some revival meeting where people lay their hands on you, you're empowered. We don't believe it happens like that. We think people have to claim that for themselves. We did that, and by example, we show our folks that it can be done.
I love it. I love it. And I am in total agreement. And you're absolutely right. It's because of the evidence, the fruit of your labor is evident. The fruit of your labor is what continues to get you from one door to the next. And even when I made reference to the fact that that was only 5 years, I need people to hear that. It from 2013 to 2018, that 1 minute you're sneaking in and the next minute or 5 years later, you've got a parking spot and you're coming in by invitation. That speaks to perseverance, that speaks to determination, that speaks to vision and focus.
Yes.
And so I need somebody out there to get that. I need somebody out there who may be on the verge of giving up. Somebody out there who may have decided this is impossible. I don't even know why I'm dreaming about this. I don't even know why I keep thinking about this. Don't give up.
Hey, Topazz, let Sean tell you what he did today, because he called me from outside of, I believe it was Denver Reception Center, DRDC on Smith Road.
Yeah.
Let him tell you what he did today.
Please.
I don't have it on me right now, but I called my brother in tears because today they gave me an all access badge into the Department of Corrections, so I can go into any facility.
Wow.
To teach men how to stay out
Without an escort.
Without an escort, and it's just amazing, because there was a time when they used to ignore me. I was in maximum security, and they used to walk by the door and not pay attention to me at all. And now
treat you like an animal.
Yeah, I believe they see me completely. I believe they see me completely now.
Amen. It can happen. To somebody out there, you need to know that it can happen. Please don't waste your second chance. If you are in a position where you feel like you're walking into a second chance, you're getting a glimpse at a second chance, don't give up. Don't stop because it's too difficult. It's overwhelming. The journey is never easy. Please talk about the accomplishment of Second Chance, what you all are doing right now, what you have grown to over these years.
I want to talk just a little bit about what we actually do when we talk about, we don't have any case managers, for one.
Thank you for that, because that's one of the things that really caught my attention. Just even the language that you guys use, it matters. But please go forward. Care management, not case managers.
And care management and care therapy.
Love it.
Our people been cases all their life, sis.
Yeah.
You know, we try to emphasize what we.
That's right. This is care.
Let me just say something to your audience. What we found with a number of folks over these years who've gone back to prison, that a lot of times people give up right before the blessing happens. I mean, we've had people go. We've heard of people going back to prison one night when that next morning they were accepted for some CDL training or something like that. It was like, you know, if you could have just held on for one more day. I mean, you know, so when it comes to quitting, that's the first thing we quit. We quit quitting on ourselves, first of all.
I actually took a gun from a guy on my couch who was about to go rob somebody because he felt like he couldn't make his rent. And it's right after I took the gun from him, he went into our computer lab and looked into his email, and he had a job offer. He had a job offer. I said, bruh.
Yes.
Man.
So let me give you a rundown. You asked what we've accomplished. Let me give you a rundown. We've been a part of the passing of 13 pieces of legislation here in the state of Colorado. The biggest of which was in 2019, which returned the voting rights to over 11,400 people with felony convictions on parole. So in Colorado now, you're not blocked from voting, even if you're still on parole. So that's pretty huge.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
And we have those laws actually framed and on walls in our center because we want our folks to know that you can have a voice and your voice can be heard and things can be different if you approach them differently. That's one of the things we do. Also,
that's part of caring.
Yes, we opened up the first permanent supportive housing development in the city of Aurora on the 24th of February last year. 50 apartments 49 of which are occupied. One we kept for a guest unit, but all for people of incomes 30% or less of area medium income. So 30% AMI. Folks will chronically homeless, recently released with disabilities, mental, physical, or emotional. So that
49 units. I need y'all to get that. 49 units.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead.
And so we did it as a low-income housing tax credit project, which was a program that was going on since 1986. We just offended some folks by finding out about the game, and I don't know why they were mad, but just because we figured it out. But we had a lot of support, a big housing team we put together, and against a lot of opposition, we were able to build this apartment in Aurora. And COVID came and slapped us in the face 3 weeks later. But it was built on time, on budget, leased up in 60 hours. And now it is a community. It's a community of people, 49 adults and 11 children who were previously unhoused. And we think it's a template for how to do this elsewhere and to do it many more times.
Yes, in fact, there's some. Our board of directors from my church have met with you all with regard to what you accomplished, looking to do something very similar, and that's at Restoration Christian Fellowship.
Yes, ma'am. And we're open to sharing our template with anyone that's in a position to try to do it, to share the lessons that we've learned. That's another thing about what we've done. We take it all as blessings, and they're not to be hoarded, they're to be shared. And so we're open to doing that as well. Right now, we're talking to you from our studio at a building that we purchased last December. And so we were leasing places ever since Second Generation was in my car. We were leasing places. And last year, we were put in a position to actually buy this building. And just to show you how, at one time, sis, we had so much attention focused on us and who these guys were and what they were trying to do, that we really just kept our heads down because we didn't want anybody to cut our heads off. And we didn't really engage in community. We didn't do interviews. We didn't go places. And at one point, we came to the understanding that to do what we were trying to do, we needed the community to support us. And the only way they were going to do that was we had to get out and let people know, one, who we were, who the population we served were, what the issues were of importance to them, and why the community should care about it. And what we found is that there were common threads between those of us coming home from prison and those who never went to prison. And that was mental health issues, substance use disorder, trauma unaddressed, or these kinds of things we had in common with everyone. And we shared this in conversations in churches and in schools and elsewhere. And the more we shared, the more people came to support us. So I told you we bought this building last year. We closed on this building on December 15th. On the 13th of December, I had a woman named Rose Green from Colorado Health Foundation. She called me and she said, Hassan, we understand you all are buying your own building. I said, yes, ma'am. Pretty exciting. She said, well, we want to be the first to help you pay for it. I said, wonderful. What you got in mind? She said, we want to give you $500,000. I had to stop her. I said, look, let me call you back, Rose. I don't know what to say right now. What I'm saying is we hadn't even signed on the building yet, and we had over a quarter of it paid for by community supporting what we were doing. So here's the thing. For us, that's validation.
Thank you, God. Absolutely.
That's affirmation.
Yes.
It's something our people look for when they come here. They look to have their life and their value validated.
Yes.
And we're just a few months or a few steps or a few years ahead of them. We still have the same needs. This is why we understand what people need coming in this building, and we're committed to helping them find those things and get those things.
Apprenticeship.
Wow. Bless you, bless you. And I've been in that building. It's a beautiful building. It's not just some rinky-dink ratchet building. It is a very nice building. I also want to speak to the complex with the 49 units. That's not just some Motel 6 that they took over. This was built from the ground up. This was built full-size apartment units. Okay, these are not just small little 2-3 room units. These are full-size apartment units that were intentionally decorated and
Market value.
Yes,
We,
yes,
we wanted them to be homes that we would ourselves want to live in.
yes.
And our partners at Shopworks Architecture, they designed a trauma-informed space. When we met with the architects on the site behind Elevation Christian Church, who were kind enough to partner with us and agreed to sell us a portion of their land, we said to them that we wanted the buildings to look like it grew there as opposed to being built there. And so everything from design and materials to colors, everything was towards that end. And it's a beautiful building. People expected some. We heard in several hearings they're going to build a monstrosity, a halfway house, a rehab. No, it's an apartment building. It's homes for a number of people. It's homes for children who used to go to school from their parents' car. Now they live there, and we're now looking to do a second project in Denver, God willing. So that's in the pipeline, and we hope that gets approved. So I'm hoping it'll be easier this time because we're no longer actually novice. We bought a successful project online, and all of the fears that people had, all of the concerns that neighbors had, none of those things have come to fruition. It's just a community of people living with support available for them.
When God's in it, there's nothing that man can do about it. Sean, you had mentioned the city jail project. Can you speak to that real quickly? We're a little over time, but I do want you to share that.
Just really briefly, we recently started about 6 or 7 months ago. We started Second Chance Center in the city. It's our first really kind of subsidiary venture outside of Aurora. We're in Denver now, taking care of people coming out of the Denver City and County Jail. And just within the 6 months that we've been open in the city, we have close to 120 participants. And we've already taken care of a lot of people's houseless situation and put people into permanent housing and gotten people jobs and gotten some lives normalized. So it's a blessing. We're in the city.
There's a scripture that says you will know them by their fruit.
Ooh.
And your fruit clearly speaks volumes. I just want to share a couple of comments from the chat. One says, I could sit and listen to you all day, Mr. Abdullah. Your story needs to be written. Another comment says, God is good, and sometimes he uses us in ways that we don't understand, but we are his vessels. Let him work.
That's right.
Someone else, Linda says, thank you, gentlemen. Your stories are amazing. Your work is to be admired and followed.
Thank you, Linda.
And I share all of those sentiments. I wish I had another hour. We need another hour. This was not enough time to really give the full fledged attention to what you all bring to this community, what you all bring to humanity. It's not just about our community, but it's about humanity. And when we know that when we sow fruit, we're sowing seeds. And so as you were alluding to earlier, Mr. Latif, you talked about what makes the difference is what the people are doing with what you're depositing in them, how lives are being impacted and how lives are changing. That's the evidence of your fruit. You, Mr. Taylor, taking, getting this man to put a gun down before he went out and maybe ruined somebody's life or took someone's life. All he needed was just a few more minutes to just slow down and breathe so that he could see that it wasn't what he thought it was. And so often we get caught up in the moment of what the circumstances appear to be in that moment. And if we just stop and pause and trust and have some faith, even in who we are and what the potential is that dwells inside of us, as you all are living proof of that in spite of who you once were, how you once lived your lives, and how you went through what you went through, battling through anger and hate and discontent, to shift, oh my God, to become a true example of the impossible. How you've done something that's never been done before, that all the statistics are against, would suggest that's not even an option. You changed the voting laws. You changed that for felons to be able to vote. That's major. Look at how many years it's been that we've had voting rights, but felons didn't have a chance. And you guys came in and did what you did, what you shared today, that testimony, Mr. Taylor, about now having access, free, full access to any facility that you need to get in to impact some brother's life. That's major, without an escort, so that you can go in there and do what you need to do the way that God would use you, without somebody tapping you on the shoulder and say, don't say that, don't do that. You get to go in there and operate in the fullness of who you are, because that's what the brothers need. Okay, let me.
Hey, Queen, we couldn't have said it better, Queen. So look, we appreciate this time. We know we done ran over time. We do that, but we don't plan to be going anywhere, God willing. So if you want to come back at us sometime in the future, we'll be here for you, because we appreciate the forum and we appreciate all those who took the time out of their evening to come and listen and to tune in. And when we talk about this legislation, we can't do so without speaking about our partners, CCGRC, Colorado Criminal Justice Reform Coalition. They're the head of our legislative sphere and have been for all these years. But thank you so much for the time, sis, for the forum. We appreciate you. God bless you. And we're going to have a client and volunteer appreciation barbecue at Second Chance Center this Saturday, 224 Potomac Street. Anybody is welcome in the community. We owe the community a couple of parties. We missed the housewarming when we opened up PATH because of COVID. So to all your listeners that are local, please come through, come eat with us, meet with us, talk with us. We'd love to have you.
A real quick question that I meant to ask earlier. In the complex that you all have, is that time limited? How long can people be residents there?
No, when we say permanent supportive housing, that's exactly what it means. For some of our folks, it will be their last home. We had our first passing of a lady named Jennifer. And, the wonderful thing about that, if you can find something wonderful in the passing of a human being, is that it didn't happen behind a dumpster or in an aqueduct or behind some building or in a car. It was in her own home with people around her that cared about her and loved her. So permanent supportive housing is just that. They can stay as long as they choose to. They have leases like every other apartment. It's just that we have 24-hour presence there. We're providing services for whatever might be needed for folks. And so that's the difference. Other than that, there's no difference in any other apartment building.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being with me this evening, being with us this evening. And I may be tapping on your shoulders for another interview sometime in the future, because clearly you have so much to offer. Thank you for what you contribute to humanity. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much, Queen. And you are still here to inspire. We appreciate it.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Please.
Thank you. All right. To our audience, thank you for those of you who have stayed with us for the duration. Again, you have been watching R&R, Release and Rediscover with Topazz. I pray that you have taken something away from this time this evening that you can integrate and intertwine in your own lives, and that you can see that a second chance makes a difference. And this is these are the founders, the visionary from the Second Chance Center in Aurora, Colorado, now extended into Denver. And stay tuned, because they're going to be expanding even more. We appreciate all of you. You've been watching R&R on CTN Media, powered by the Black Business Initiative. Good night, everybody. Stay blessed.
Take care. Peace.
Peace.